On the Democratic side, I think that someone runs for president in 25 for 28. Check it out.
Wow. Early.
Yeah, early. Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, Ro Khanna, J.B. Pritzker, probably Klobuchar, like on and on. If you are anywhere below that kind of tier and you declare after
any of those guys,
like no one's going to give a shit.
Yeah.
Everybody, happy 2025, happy new year. Welcome back with Andrew and Zach, here to ring it in right. Time to thrive in 25.
Ooh, 5 and thriving. Welcome back, guys and gals. 2025, yes. Man. How you feeling?
It's, happy new year to the world.
New year, new me.
Yes. I mean, shit, I've got a big landmark birthday coming up in
yeah, you do.
I know, guys, it's going to shock everyone, particularly those of you who are watching and not just listening, but I turned 50.
Big 5. Is that right?
January 13th, yeah. And that shocks a lot of people, which makes me happy, I guess, because, it's good that I don't seem like I'm turning 50.
You look good for 50, man.
Well, thank you. I've got good politician
What's the joke?
hair.
Asian don't raisin?
Yeah, Asian don't raisin. Yeah. I tell people good. I moisturize.
As white boy, definitely raisins.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm very proud of because I look back to people like, oh, you don't seem 50, which is thank you, I appreciate that. But then I feel good because I feel like I've maxed out my time on this earth. Honestly, it's like I've really been taking some meaningful swings.
When you look at cash relief alone in 2020, I don't think we're gonna do anything more impactful on that.
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling good. Like we mainstreamed cash relief, had a hand in getting billions of dollars of checks out there.
Hey, let me ask. Like a lot of your friends are probably turning 52. You think?
I don't recommend. No,
yeah, I was gonna say, how are they feeling? What's the vibe of 50-year-olds?
Dude,
right now
I gotta say. So, I mean, I'm thinking about how old our listeners are. Some of them probably can relate to this, but so I'm around other 50-year-old dudes a fair amount, and I gotta say, one thing that makes me appreciate my own life is that some of them, frankly, like seem a little bit older, and there is something about this time of life. I mean, your parents are getting older. My dad's 84, and like the knees aren't as springy. Like you don't recover from things as quick. You're not bouncing back in the same way after a late night. So there are a bunch of adjustments that you see in those around you. But it makes me grateful that I've lived the life I have. Not to say, I mean, some of my friends are thriving and doing great or whatnot.
That's probably a good life. I just turned 37, and you have certain of my friends that look young, have young energy. They're doing new things. They clearly feel fulfilled, and that youthful exuberance still like comes out of them. And I have others that they might as well be 50 at that. It might be 60.
I see that.
Like, you probably see that.
One thing I said to some, which is probably true-ish. The oldest I've ever been was when I was a corporate attorney for those 5 months in my 20s, because it was just such like a job of imagining the worst things that could happen.
Corporate attorney's
like
tough.
And you're like wearing a suit and just being.
I liked my time at UBS as like a experience from I don't know less. So I hated it.
You had a better experience. But it's like being a 20-something-year-old stuffed shirt, which is what you felt like, and then in my case, becoming an entrepreneur and losing the get up and the rest of it, and then I got younger, and then it's like I've done a lot of things that have kept me young since. Let
me ask you a quick question, because I don't think we ever talked about this in the podcast, and I'd love to verify it, and we can cut it if you don't like. But there was a legend about you. Someone told me, I think used to work with you, was that one day the phone was ringing, and you just looked at it, and you're like, nah, I'm not doing this anymore, and just kind of walked out. Is that how you left?
Oh, okay. So this was the story of what happened with the law firm. That this is what the person's referring.
That's epic.
What the person's referring to. So I'm working there very, very early on. I've been there a month or so.
Yeah.
And then it's Friday, very late afternoon. It's maybe 5:45 p.m.
Okay.
And then the phone rings. You can see who's calling. And it was like the assignment person. And so I go to pick up my phone. I'm like, wait a minute. If I pick up the phone, they're going to tell me that I have to stay here all weekend and review various documents. And if I don't pick up the phone, then I'm just going to walk out of here and enjoy myself all weekend. And so I'm not going to pick up this phone. And so then I just just let him ring and I was like, well, just walked out the door, had myself a weekend. And then I came back Monday morning and I went to my friend and office neighbor. It's like, hey, how was your weekend? It was like, oh, the phone rang at 5:45 and I've been here ever since. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, it's like, oh, like that stinks or whatever. But it's one reason why I knew I had to leave because, it's like I was never going to excel in an environment where my impulse was just to be like, hey,
peace out.
Yeah, like, why would I burn my weekend reviewing due diligence documents when if I like someone else does it, I mean, frankly, like, we're going to get paid the same.
That's true.
Though he was going to be more likely to make partner speculatively, like 9 years later. But then I was like, I got to get out of here. Like this place is the wrong place
That's
for me.
good though, that you got out.
I got out after 5 months. I was the first in my class to leave.
I have plenty of friends in the finance world that regret staying for so long. Now they don't know what to do. Because entrepreneurship, like making your own way, is hard, and so it's in my opinion, in the early days, a young man's game, young woman's game. Like you got to have the grind. You got to take chicken shit and make it chicken salad. You got to, Elon calls it like staring into the abyss while eating glass. Like it's very hard, and so doing that in your like 50s and 60s, you just have a different lifestyle and tendencies that don't always cut that way.
Yeah, man, like the angsty days of my 20s so I left that job to start a company that did not work out and I still owed 6 figures in school loans. And so like I felt really beleaguered and insecure.
That's scary. And you're trying to make it as a 20-year-old, trying to get a girl, you're trying to get a...
Yeah. So I was plagued with real anxiety about how my career was going to work out, until I was probably in my mid 30s or so.
Was
so
that after GMAT, after Manhattan GMAT? Was
I mean, so Manhattan GMAT, and I actually just said this to a young, aspiring entrepreneur that I'm kind of mentoring, where Manhattan GMAT, Manhattan Prep, this education company I became the CEO of, when I was 31, was so liberating because there's nothing anyone could do to help my business unless they wanted to buy a test prep course.
So is it clearly black and white?
And in which case they weren't, a huge needle mover to me. It was just like one customer.
It was helpful, but not.
But it was so. But before that, I was working at this venture-backed healthcare software company. So we would schmooze with investors. We would schmooze with surgeons. We would schmooze with various folks. It's like, oh, this person could be a difference maker. So you kind of had this sense that you were
people with upside, but couldn't help you in the short run, and probably wouldn't.
But in the new world, it's like I do not give a shit about you unless you are a customer, like a direct customer, which means you're probably around 25 years old. And other than that, nothing matters. So I would be at a cocktail party or whatnot. And I people would ask what I did. And I would just be like, oh, I work in an education company, and just not have any interest in going further than that, because it's like, you cannot do anything for me.
Yeah, we're good.
And yeah, we're good. So I can just talk about whatever the fuck.
You can be real people now.
Yeah, I can just be a person. And so when I'm not at the company and I'm hanging out with Evelyn or when we were dating at that time, it's like, what do you want to do? You want to see a movie? Sure. You want to do this? Sure. It's like, it was just you're free and easy. Because no one could do anything. And the only thing I had to worry about was just doing a good job for customers and just growing the business bit by bit. And so it really matured me quickly because instead of imagining, it's like, oh, I can, it's like nothing matters except just trying to do a good job day in, day out. And so I we had a quality offering, and I was at that time, I don't know if you and I have joked about this recently, but like I was actually a pretty good manager at this time too, because I'd look around and say, it's like, okay, who's going to make the biggest difference? The staff.
The staff, yeah.
The staff. So it's like, let me make the staff happy. Let me try to be a good boss. And so during that time, I would do fun things like buy Knicks season tickets, buy Mets season tickets, like rent a house in Vermont for like a ski trip and just be like, hey guys, let's go. It's like, it was all morale booster.
Yeah.
I was like Mr.
You're a hype man.
Mr. Corporate Culture.
Yeah. But well, I do think it's a trap you could fall into in your early 20s and even throughout your career, is that you think you build up, everybody says you got to build up your network. It's all who you know. It's not what you know, et cetera.
No, it didn't matter.
And well, no, but even in some worlds, like people don't really care. I would say definitely post-COVID, but even that is like, there's these network things, like people may like you for the role or your potential, but as soon as that changes, it's not always
well, as a struggling
connection.
entrepreneur, there was a lot of networky. And then,
you try to grind,
and then when
right?
I became the CEO of Manhattan Prep, then it was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And so that was like such a liberating feeling, and it made me much more pure and business minded and focused and just do a good job. I'd be like, the other thing is that the business wasn't glamorous. So I wouldn't be.
No, it was like, ooh, that's so interesting. People thought they understood it and they didn't want to ask any more questions.
Oh yeah. I mean, frankly, like if I said, if I say test prep, then you just thought backwater,
you get it.
Kaplan, high turnover, like So it's like I decided not to deal with it. And that this, by the way, I think was one of the greatest character building periods of my career. Just in that, it's like, look, like I went from being an attorney at a very fancy law firm that if I said the name of it, and
people
anyone's in the field, it's like, ooh, it's fancy, right.
Ooh, wow.
And so I said, I'm working for a test prep company you've never heard of. People would be like, oh, like. That, like, it's like, you don't care, I don't care, no one cares, it's fine.
Yep.
And then I just did it year after year, and the business grew and grew and grew. And then after, let's call it 5 years, you're number one in the country and it gets bought by a public company. And then you're just like, all of a sudden. So, that was like a very pure form of entrepreneurship. It'd be like if someone came to you with a business opportunity that, it's like pipe fitting or whatever. I don't know shit about pipe fitting or whatever, but it's like just something, and you just like spent 5 years, like, building a,
Yep.
I mean, it was obviously, a little bit, like more,
but,
so when I came out of that, like I still had this, gritty, like, I was just called like an eat shit mentality. And when we were on the presidential trail, I mean, I personally think that, it's like there was a lot of
shit eating.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit eating, and so you just be like, and like I would just have a good attitude all
like
the time about it. I'd be like,
yeah,
what, it doesn't matter. I think now that I'm turning 50, like some of that stuff is recalibrating in my mind.
You want to eat a little less shit now that you're older.
And it's something that I actually ride myself on. It's like, oh, you're so fucking like
you call yourself lazy because you knew what you used to do.
Yes.
Used to do. Yes.
Yes. And part of it too, and this is like, because you and I are sports aficionados and whatnot, you feel like you're transitioning a little bit from athlete to coach or and by the way, that there's something of a life cycle for entrepreneurs too. It's like, I'm the operator. I grindy. I like handle all the issues. And then what happens after a certain period? I become the board member, the investor,
the decider,
the mentor, the person who comes in and but like I'm not going to be, on the line in that way.
Right.
I mean, in entrepreneurial circles, it's called going to the dark side. Is when you become an investor, because investors by and large have a bad reputation as just like jerk offs. And then there's like if you're the operator, then you have to actually like make the stuff work, and you have to worry about it and the rest of it.
I will say the character building was like, so when I first started, Suit Up was my first like sort of grind, like go 0 to 1, right? And then, when you're first starting that, it's a lot of rejection, it's a lot of nonsense, everything you're talking about. But then if you can get that, right, then you start to feel more and more confident. Right, because like when you go through shit, then the reality is you're like, well, it can't be. At a certain point, you're like, well, it can't be worse than X, right? Yeah. And then when you're on the presidential campaign, in some ways it was easier than Suit Up because that was so new, but that was also a lot of shit eating, right? But now post, like, you'd start to feel a little more invincible. You're like, it can't be as worse as our first event in New Hampshire, right? It can't be, like you can't be like the floor is now lower. And that's kind of what the entrepreneurial's mindset is. Like, I gotta make a certain level, like a level of nut, like a level of income, level of success story, so that I maybe don't have to do the same amount of shit eating as I get older.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I mean, I think a lot about, or again, how fortunate I've been in my path and journey. But people who put themselves out there and then they eat shit for a particular period of time. And we lived in a society where it's like, okay, that will work out for you in some form.
Right.
And increasingly, like, people are now, it's like, oh, like it may not work out, which I actually get as a numbers guy. You look at it and be like, oh yeah, that things aren't fair as you'd hope. Hello, YouTube. Please do hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget, you can ask questions at mailbag@andrewyang.com. See you on the interwebs. Which leads us to our predictions for 2025.
Yeah, baby. I'm glad we got to unpack that. That was fun.
TLDR, Andrew's getting old and is still
you're still hustling,
vigorous.
Man. You're still hustling.
Fired up, hustling.
Still lighting a fire on
willing to grind. Still trying to make great things happen. And this is going to be a really big year for us. So one thing in terms of the predictions, so first, let me say that Zach and I are working on something that will become public to the world. Probably not, like today, months. Tomorrow. Yeah, it's like probably a matter of like X weeks. But we're excited about it. And
we are excited about this. Like, we're really, you and I collectively have not been excited about something in a while, so that's fun. Working on some shit.
And it's not Dean Phillips.
It's not political.
It's not political even, though I will say it has the potential to improve a lot of people's lives. So we're really pumped. But that's not in the prediction universe.
We'll get there eventually, but what the appetite?
So apparently we were pretty good on our political predictions for 24. Bully for us. There we did have a bit of an inside scoop.
You were awesome though. You nailed your Andrew's political prediction of it's probably a Biden-Trump rematch or some version of it. Correct. You said.
Trump for most of the year.
Trump will the never Trump Republicans or the moderate Republicans will try to rally around someone, probably Nikki Haley, and that will be tough. Nailed that. And it's probably it might be Trump 2.0 unless Dems kind of get their act together. Also true. Nailed the political prediction, man. Well done.
All right.
So for those of you should keep listening to this because apparently we're right sometimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have the benefits of being objective.
The bar is that low, man. That's
pretty wild.
So well done, bud.
So political predictions for 2025, and all right. So on the national scale, the Republican majority, by the way, is like super narrow. I think they might have even lost one seat. They have like a 220 to 215 margin in the House, 53-47 in the Senate. But that House margin is so narrow that if they have 3 recalcitrant members or even like a handful of folks who don't show up for whatever reason, they're not going to be able to. It's like, there are a lot of old members. And so there's going to become a fractious food fight. Let's say the Republican Unity Tour is going to be very, very short-lived. And they're going to have problems passing a continuation of the Trump tax cuts of 2017. Because all it takes is 3 deficit hawks being like, whoa, this is going to add, $4 trillion to the deficit or whatever it's going to be over X period of years. So we're going to be in store, unfortunately, for like a rough go if people like legislation passing on time and things like that. On the Democratic side, I think that someone runs for president in 25 for 28. So hear me out. Check it out.
Wow. Early.
Yeah, early.
That's really early.
It's really early. But I think it happens. And from experience, I declared in early 2018, which in this context would be early 26.
Yep.
Now, that was in some ways a mistake in that no one gave a shit about
First
the
9 months.
presidential
Everything
until
before the
after the
midterms was tough.
midterms.
Yeah.
So political wisdom would be don't do it until after the midterms. It would be November 26th. But in my case, declaring as early as I did gave me time to develop certainly a bit of a following and a message. Thank you if you've been here since then.
Yep.
And when other people started declaring, the attention and energy followed them. If you think about the Dem field for 28, think about a bunch of the folks who are almost certainly going to run. I'm talking Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, Ro Khanna, J.B. Pritzker, probably Klobuchar, like on and on. And so if you are anywhere below that kind of tier and you declare
After any of those guys?
like no one's going to give a shit.
Yeah.
And so
Politico will give you a small article.
at
Maybe.
the same time, right now, the Democratic Party is identityless. It's fragmented. Like no one knows what to do. They're gonna choose a DNC chair who's not going to be exactly like a heavyweight visionary by all accounts. It's going to be more of like a hey, let's set up a fair process. So the upside to declaring in 26 is higher. Sorry, in 25, the upside to declaring in 25 is higher than usual.
Yep.
Because right now there's like a completely open runway. Like MSNBC and CNN have no idea what to talk about for this period. Let's be covering stuff. And so if you were to declare, they'd probably have you on. You'd probably have the field to yourself.
Yep. If you had a good message, it'd be a good time to run.
It'd be,
in this prediction, do exploratory committees count?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say someone's just out there being like, heck, I'm running.
Because that's what I'd do. If I was a sitting senator or governor, I would, in 2025, announce my exploratory committee. Tactically, it's the best because you basically start a super PAC or PAC of some sort that lets you raise some money. You get to gussy up reporters, gussy up donors. You can do a bunch of press. If you were to run, if I was to run, this would be my message. And you're just getting your message out there. And also, you then have the benefit of like none of these donors and none of these reporters like give a shit about me. I probably could save myself the headache of XYZ. And you can stay in your current role, keep your salary, keep most of your staff. There's a bunch of ethics rules on it. I'm rolling my eyes at them because they're not always followed. But you can do a moonlight crew. Pete Buttigieg did this to perfection, in my opinion. I think he announced in 2018 for his exploratory committee and got some press, did some things. And they peaked up to a moment when he declared, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, okay, that doesn't count. They have to really declare.
Yeah, no, someone's going to be marching around in 25 because there's such a void on that side. It's wild. Also, 25, and then this is obviously in our line of sight, but there is going to be a New York City mayoral election in 25. So this is not going to be too out there as a prediction, but Eric Adams does not win.
Okay.
And I think that there's going to be an appetite for a non-politician. I think the opposite of Eric Adams, the corrupt insidery politician, is an incorruptible outsider. And I think that a candidate that resembles that is going to emerge in the New York City mayoral race. So no more Eric Adams, and then I think an outsider contends.
Okay.
So that's 3 predictions.
I like those.
This podcast is sponsored by ExpressVPN. How did you choose which internet service provider to use? The sad thing is, most of us didn't have much of a choice because ISPs operate a lot like monopolies in the regions that they serve. They then use this monopoly position to take advantage of customers, and yes, they even sell your data, your activities to advertisers and big tech companies, and you don't see a dime. That's why I protect my internet surfing and devices with ExpressVPN. When you use ExpressVPN, it's like a magic portal to a perfectly safe and anonymous internet. And don't take my word for it. This is the #1 VPN service according to CNET. It's used by major companies all over the world. So stop handing over your personal data to ISPs and other tech companies who then mine your activity and sell off your information. Protect yourself with a VPN I trust to keep my privacy online. Visit expressvpn.com/yang. That's expressvpn.com/yang to get 3 extra months free. Go to expressvpn.com/yang right now to learn more.
I have maybe two. One is this. I think that DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, divides the country. And I think it's a wildly political, divisive line in the U.S. And we've always talked about politics being a horseshoe where your Bernies and Trumps touch at the edges. I think this turns into a populist versus corporate or institutional debate. I think Trump's going to see how many folks are really behind his populist lane or are just there because they're an institutional Republican. And you'll have a bunch of Dems go on the side of DOGE in many ways. Bernie's already there. Ro Khanna's already said he's there. Dean Phillips, who's not there anymore. But there will be, if there's like appealing things, especially stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in DOGE that is good for all people, particularly some Democrats. The one that Bernie mentioned was capping credit card interest rates at 10%, which I love that policy.
Yeah, please.
But there's a whole bunch of these. You're going to see, it'll be a morality test, in my opinion. And it will be a very, very divisive issue in 2025. That's my prediction.
I think most people are going to be pro-DOGE.
I think people will be. Will our institutions be? I don't think so. I think that's where your rub will be.
Oh, yeah, no, the institutions are going to hate it.
They're going to hate it. And then you're going to have hit pieces on DOGE. And it'll be the argument we have with alternative and mainstream media. It'll be this all the time.
Yeah, that's probably true. That there
we'll
are any number of establishment.
I mean, maybe
folks.
Trump is as powerful, more powerful than we think, that he can get this stuff through. The early reports out of like what you're hearing from DOGE is that it's surprising how many Republican congressmen are not fully on board with this. Which is
there is a gravy train. The gravy train.
The gravy train,
does
baby. Work
on both sides. I actually have as a prediction that the federal workforce shrinks. So I think that DOGE does.
Well, they'll do that. I think. Yeah.
I mean I think that DOGE has an impact in terms of.
It's a good prediction.
Of head count. So I've got that there are multiple major labor strikes.
Oh.
Including teachers, airline workers, healthcare workers, and postal workers. The postal workers. So. We saw a number of strikes in 24. There were the port workers, Hollywood at a certain point.
Hollywood, yeah.
And there are a bunch of contracts that are up. And the automation wave is continuing apace. They actually didn't really fully resolve automation, the issue with the dock workers. And so you're going to have the rubber hit the road with a lot of these unions in 25. And so when you looked at which contracts are up, those are some of the ones you can see coming down the pike. And I think at least one of these strikes goes on for a while and causes very significant disruption. And so those possibilities would be teachers, airline workers.
Now would be the time, because when they're in election year, they tend to get solved, like the dock workers you're talking about. And I mean, frankly, factor in DOGE, factor in looming budget cuts, etc. That's a good prediction.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for some very, very significant labor strikes. I've got a fun one.
We've been talking about these before. So just FYI, these are surprises to me. This is exciting.
then that's well, I'm good. I'm glad you like.
I'm always curious if your AI robots tech takes too.
Oh yeah. So on the AI front, I think AI influencers start competing and winning following.
Like real AI influencers.
Yeah.
A person controls.
Well, yeah, a person devises the AI influencer.
But they're the AI character is what we fall in love with.
Yeah. Just follow them around and watch, and then they get following. So this drives economics.
I mean, you can make them beautiful and appeasing to the ear and eyes.
Sure.
So that's, to me, half of the battle.
Yep.
Maybe more than half.
Yeah.
I have looked at like AI content generators, et cetera. But I think that's somewhat nonsensical because the platforms, like theoretically, you put out a million tweets and things and they don't work.
Hypnotic about some of the AI stuff. You look at it and you're like, huh.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and then, it's kind of relaxing, soothing.
Yeah.
So I think that you wind up with like AI influencers driving some real numbers.
Okay.
Including revenue. Okay. And then people are like, wait, this actually... if anything is going to piss off human influencers that's watching, because being an influencer being an influencer, I know some of those folks and they work really hard, so they're going to be really pissed off when the AI influencers.
You ever see that? There's a Black Mirror where, basically a cartoon character runs for president. You ever see this? Or runs for prime minister in the UK, and it's an interesting episode, but the character, because it's a cartoon character, can be a troll and say things that most humans wouldn't say. And oddly, he does very well.
So one prediction that I got wrong for 24 was that I thought the market would experience a retreat and a setback, which was a very bold thing to say given that it was an election year. And ordinarily election years, they try and stab it off.
That wrong. Yeah.
Now, I think that the market has a fine first half of the year, and then I think it runs into some... headwinds in the second half of the year. And part of that, I believe, is going to be driven by stubborn mortgage rates. So one of the looming issues that at least some folks in the administration are concerned about is that the deficit just keeps creeping higher and the appetite for American debt is now lower. And so when interest rates go down, it doesn't necessarily mean that mortgage rates follow. So you have a couple things going on in the housing market. So you have prices went way up, and then mortgage rates also went up, which pushes affordability way down. So now volume is super low. There just aren't a lot of deals being made. Mm-hmm. But no one wants to bring your prices down because that would be obviously a
can't do that. Prices don't go up.
Yeah, and so you have young people in particular looking up, being like, okay, I can't afford anything. So how does this end up getting resolved? And there are only a few ways it could get resolved. Number one is that mortgage rates come back down to 2021 levels. And what I'm saying is that will not happen because
they won't let it.
Because even if the Fed lowers its interest rate, what you'll see is that. Mortgage rates won't follow because the appetite for American debt isn't there. And so though this will at some point cause meaningful economic headwinds, because if you have historically low levels of housing sales, then that means it starts hitting the Home Depots, Bed Baths and Beyonds, like all the stuff that gets fueled by people changing homes and buying homes, like the market. Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, this stuff starts hitting the real economy back half of next year.
Okay.
Now I just being very upfront, like got the timing wrong in 24, so I could very
disclaimer,
well get
it's not investment
again.
Advice.
Very much not investment advice. It's just in my case,
we were wrong last year.
Yeah, in my case, I mean, I do talk to professional investors and
you're not uninformed.
But a bit like obviously not investment advice. Got it wrong in 24. I'd be the first to say that.
My market prediction is crypto runs, man. I think you're going to have Trump will be the first president to regulate crypto the right way. And that will unlock not only institutional money and more retail investment in there, but it'll unlock the entrepreneurial potential of Ethereum and Bitcoin, some of these other versions of blockchain tech, because yes, there's Andreessen Horowitz's out there and some big venture funds that put a lot of money into these. But one of the biggest hesitations in crypto investing is that you just don't know how they're going to regulate it. And they've been regulating by enforcement. Kim Kardashian is like the famous one where it's like you get hammered with fines or cease and desist, et cetera, et cetera. If that goes away, I think crypto will keep running, and it's already running. But I think we unlock the beginning of what cryptocurrency and blockchain technology can be this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you see it that way.
Yeah. I could be wrong. We could be at the top of the market, but I'm pretty excited about it.
Hey all, if you know me, you know I'm not that handy in the kitchen, and I have become a huge believer and booster of Factor. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating a joy. It's so fast, you just pop that thing 2 minutes later, and you are eating a restaurant-quality, healthy meal, making you feel excellent about yourself. My favorite is the turkey chili with zucchini, and there is so much more to choose from. You never get tired of it. It fits any budget. It's fast, healthy. It is going to be the new Factor in your life. Yes, I'm a fan. Head to factormeals.com/yang50 and use code yang50 to get 50% off your first box and 2 free wellness shots per box while subscription is active. That's code yang50 at factormeals.com/yang50 to get 50% off your first box. Get Factor today. It's going to change the way you eat. All right, so this is a dark prediction that I don't think most people would dispute necessarily, but I think that you have multiple assassination attempts against CEOs and political figures. And thinking about Luigi Mangione.
Have you talked about your tweet on this podcast?
No.
You were trending. You're not always trending anymore. You were trending for saying that thinking that murder is right is a path to hell. I'm paraphrasing, but a version.
Yeah, no. I did say that. I believe it. And it was interesting. Multiple people reached out to me being like, oh, don't you understand why people are mad? It's like, look, of course I understand why people are mad. I mean, like our healthcare system is completely messed up. But the moment you start defending or justifying gunning someone down in the street, like we all wind up in very, very dark places very, very quickly. And unfortunately, I do think that the conversation around this is really unproductive, to say the least, and it's going to wind up leading to more. And even if Luigi Mangione had not become like, this
cult hero.
Yeah, this cult hero. I would still probably believe this because of all the macro forces towards, disintegration and mistrust and a bunch of other things. But now that this has happened, I think that you end up seeing a fairly consistent pattern. And I think that manifests in 25.
My opinion on this has always been two things can be true at the same time. One is that our healthcare system's a mess. People are getting denied their claims, and it's causing people to die on the margins and probably bigger than the margins. And it's very dark. And these big healthcare companies are generally aversion to blame, although it's maybe the system probably the blame and lack of action from political action and courage and things like that. And that's really dark and messed up. Also, murder is wrong. Those two things can be true at the same time. And I didn't like Liz Warren's statement that people can only be pushed so far. I think that's
just trying to project rationality onto an insane person who's
objectively insane. Like the reports coming out, this person was unwell.
Yeah, completely. And that's one of the noxious, toxic things about this era. It's like, oh, you try and explain the behavior of someone who's deeply troubled. It's like, no, like that's not the way.
Yeah.
Like trying to say like, oh, this is, somehow rational.
Murder is not okay if you don't like the person. You know what I mean? Like that's not.
That's a trap of social media, by the way. It's like you have to know that there are some people on social media that are mentally ill.
Yes.
And so then if you're like, oh, this person does, like, no, some people are just crazy, and so when you try and put this into a framework where it's like, oh, this is like a natural result of this, like, no, like some people are bad, some people are crazy, some people do very bad things.
We don't have to fuel that fire.
Yes.
And look, on one hand, like, I guess.
And this is someone who obviously cares deeply about how dysfunctional our healthcare system is.
For sure.
Our different systems. But yeah, so unfortunately, I think Luigi Mangione is a sign of things to come.
That's probably a good prediction, man. Ugh. All right, my prediction's a little different. I think quantum computing is gonna start to emerge. I don't know if you all saw this, but Google basically, I'm gonna butcher some of the mechanics of this, but they basically were able to create a quantum algorithm and computer solver, if you will, in the sense that you can just run, I think the number was like 77 septillion, like the real number, I guess, iterations of code, which is essentially infinity, a version of it. And that will probably rear its ugly head in increased cybersecurity attacks. And if this ends up happening, becoming mainstream, we're going to have a rough transition period in terms of password protection and IDs, et cetera. It'll be hard storage in the sense that you need like a physical key to get into things until they start putting quantum computing in your iPhone and et cetera. It's going to be rough because like Face ID may not work the way it will. Passwords certainly will not work because what can happen is they can try all the passwords, generally speaking. And if they know a little bit about you, they don't have to try all of them. I think it's really exciting at what this can do. But it's going to be similar to AI. It's going to be similar to automation. It's like a double-edged sword. Like the good will be good and amazing, and the bad will be sometimes kind of rough.
It sounds like what you're saying is there's going to be a spike in identity theft and hacking.
I think so. And driven ideally probably by this quantum computer.
Oh, and I mean, it's totally happening. I mean, people are going to get spoofed by voice recordings.
Oh, the AI thing's real, man.
It's like, oh, hey, it's your mom. Send me money. I mean, who's going to not send money to your mom?
I know.
I've got a positive or two. I think the movement to get smartphones out of schools spreads beyond the current states. California was one. I think that's good. And I think there's a movement to live a simpler, more tech-free life that starts to emerge among young people, but people generally, that they'll realize that these things that we hold in our hands, maybe not always good for
the best.
Our sense of well-being.
We're gonna look back at them like cigarettes. Maybe social media.
So I think there's going to be
children.
And kudos to my friend Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Anxious Generation.
Thank you for that, man. Right guy, right time.
Right guy, right time. And it's like I dug into it a little bit, and I mean, it was a great book and the rest of it, but it's really about a man's deep passion for our young people living better lives. It's like it's really like Jonathan Haidt's a deeply moral human, and we live in an era sometimes we're like, oh, what can one deeply moral person do?
In a world with lack of morality, turns out a lot. Yeah.
I mean, the government of New Zealand bought every one in the country a copy of The Anxious Generation to try and get their.
I've always thought the government should have a book club in the U.S.
They should send everyone.
Given the shit we spend money on, like you spend $1 billion on sending every American a certain book that is good for society. The problem is it would probably turn into a propaganda machine based on the party over time. It'd have to be like NPR, NPR is a bad example. It'd be like the post office in terms of its neutrality, if you can. I don't know.
I think there's a surge in interest in people moving to inexpensive parts of Latin America and Asia from the U.S. and then retiring affordably. There's a mini genre of YouTube videos to this effect.
Yep, and TikTok.
But I think that just builds a lot of steam.
I would probably say it's my parents. Like, hey, take some friends, take your 401k. It's gonna get you 10x when you got over here in Italy or Singapore or wherever. I mean, Singapore's kind of expensive.
Maybe Greece, maybe Costa Rica. Maybe
yeah.
Rural Japan. I mean, the rural Japan thing is fascinating.
Yeah, clean. They let you over there, though?
I think so.
They let you stay. They don't let you become a citizen, but they'll let you hang out.
I think so. I mean, all I know is rural Japan's freaking empty. So, like that, get there. Like, it's one of those situations like those villas in Italy or whatever. You can buy it for super cheap. So, but I think that happens and enters the zeitgeist.
Okay.
Significantly, the phone-free aspect, starting off with adolescence, I see as very productive. Mixed feelings, obviously. I mean, you shouldn't have to leave the U.S. to retire or like lead like a, lead the life you want. This podcast is sponsored by Helix Sleep. I've been a mattress guy ever since I can remember, ever since I started working out, honestly, because I thought to myself, you know what? If you're going to do something, ideally 8 hours a day, you should try and do it right. I've been partnering with Helix Sleep for several years, ever since they sent me a Dawn Firm mattress that was identified via personalized sleep quiz because I knew I needed extra support. And it's been exactly what I was looking for. I wake up healthier, recharged, more energized. And for some reason, it's my kids' favorite mattress in the whole house, even though it was not made with them in mind. I've had numerous friends buy Helix Sleep mattresses at my recommendation, and they say it's exactly what they're looking for too. Don't take my word for it. It's the #1 mattress recommendation of GQ, Wired, my kids. The list goes on and on. Go to helixsleep.com/yang for 25% off site-wide plus 2 free dream pillows with a mattress purchase plus free bedding bundle. That's 2 dream pillows, a sheet set, and a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's helixsleep.com/yang. helixsleep.com/yang for one of the best offers of the year. With Helix Sleep, better sleep starts now. These predictions for 2025, I will say, I'm charged up for the new year. I'm charged up about some of the stuff we're working on, but I'm charged up about trying to just make the year awesome, live it right. I'm turning 50, my 50th year on the planet. It's going to be great. I hope that 2025 is an awesome year and that you thrive this year. Happy New Year to everybody. And if there are positive, productive suggestions we can make for the new year, because I know a logical thing to do when you hear predictions like, ooh, what can I do? How can I use these? Like that, the main thing to know is that this year is going to be what you make of it. Invest in yourself, your health, your relationships, your response to opportunities, your response to setbacks. Just make this year an awesome one.
Before we go, Super Bowl predictions.
Oh yeah, let's run down some sports for fun. Dude, I think it's Josh Allen's Superman year. I think it's the Bills.
I can't do it, but I really am grateful for that. That's great.
Sometimes you get that aura. Like that dude just seems to have the aura this year.
He's so much fun to watch.
I'll say on the NBA side, I think the Celtics repeat for the first repeat since I think the Warriors 7 years ago. You feel like the Warriors won. I mean, they did win more recently, I think in 22, but no one's repeated in a while, but I think the Celtics do it. I think that team is just stacked and they've, invested a ton. On the other side, probably the Thunder. I think it's Celtics over Thunder. I think here's a prediction. I think LeBron retires this year. He's 40. Like, what's the guy doing at this point? You played with your son. You're not going to win any more titles, probably.
It's probably time. He's not winning anymore. Yeah.
And if you saw that Netflix documentary, that dude has to get treatment and get iced and beaten into shape for hours just to be able to get out there and do the thing. I mean, he's probably worth $1 billion now. It's time for that dude to. I mean, he's like the all-time leader in points.
He doesn't owe anyone
minutes.
Anything. Yeah.
Like there's like nothing left for this man to do. So I think LeBron retires. I think Dookie Cooper Flag gets drafted #1.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah,
having a good sports year so far.
Dude,
Cooper Flag and Josh Allen, my Lord and Savior Josh Allen.
I mean, that guy, like, even his name.
Cooper Flag.
Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
I mean, this
he's
seems like some fictional
dunking on people. It's pretty cool.
It seems like a fictional character type thing. And of course he went to Duke. I'm just kidding. Whatever.
Yeah.
So it's funny, guys. Like, I used to really despise Duke because why would you not despise Duke? But then now that I've worked with Zach for a million years and hung out with tons of Dukies, now I'm like totally, frankly, like comfortable with Duke, like positive on it. So I'd get that outside looking in. I used to be like, what's funny is one of the guys who made me hate Duke was JJ Redick, who I got to know during the presidential, and now I'm like, oh, JJ, now he's the freaking coach of the Lakers. From the day.
Talk about a character arc that certainly changed, because he was one of the most hated people in all of sports, maybe sports history. And then as he became an adult and people started to like him a little bit. He was pretty scrappy pro, and then his podcast was really, I mean, he's a very smart guy, thoughtful guy,
smart, disciplined guy. I mean, that guy just made himself into.
He's a hustler, man. He's a cool guy.
He's so strong-willed. I mean, you got to respect it.
You listen to his practice routines; they're crazy. Like you ever listen to won't leave a court. He's like, I shoot like 15 shots from here, 15 shots from here, and 50 shots from here. Like he's like crazy.
Yeah, he's a machine.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lakers, not his fault if they don't do that.
It's a tough gig.
That team, it's a flawed roster.
Yeah.
And then let's go Mets. I think the Mets win the World Series.
Wow, would love that. I can't. So I've learned this. If what I said affected the Bills' performance on the field, we would have won a lot of Super Bowls, let's put it that way. But I will not, just for vibes, I will not predict the Bills, although I do think this is a great year for us. I'm going to go with Chiefs and their black magic. Going to continue versus it's either the Packers or the Rams in my picks in the NFC. I don't think the Vikings have it, and I think the Lions are too banged up.
I say,
I'd love to be the Lions.
I chose Bills Lions. I guess I'll stick to that.
Yeah, I think, God, that would be an awesome. America would love that Super Bowl. It's not fun to pick the same, but that's probably my prediction. Boston, almost certainly. And then I would love to see the Mets pull it off. I would say New York City, where we live, is just so much more vibrant when it's the Knicks. Although the Knicks have a shot this year. I think they can beat Boston. I just don't know if they can get out of the East. The rest of the teams, it's tough. But when the Knicks and the Mets and the Yankees, if one of the three are good and contending for a playoff spot, the vibes in New York City are awesome. And so I would love that as a current New Yorker,
Yeah.
Knicks look good. Knicks will be okay.
Let's go Mets. The Knicks problem is they really trimmed their depth.
Yeah, that's not the same as years past. Although, who knows? Thibodeau, man. We'll see. He works some magic.
I think they need to trade for something. I don't know what they have. I will say too that 5 draft picks for Mikal Bridges feels a little bit like an overpay now. I mean, no, sorry Knicks fans, but that was a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It was a lot.
We're gonna see, but I think they can match up with the Celtics, which is not something you can say versus everyone in the East. So that'll help. But they have a high ceiling. But that doesn't mean the other matchup league. And I'd say the Bills, same thing. We match up with the Chiefs, great, but we don't match up with the Ravens, great. And some of these NFC teams, we're gonna have to play a shootout. It's always a crapshoot at that point. So we'll see. Honestly, man, sports are entertainment. Politics is a version of entertainment at this point. It will be entertaining. It's gonna be a great year.
It's gonna be a great year if we make it. So
there you go.
Happy New Year. Happy 2025 to everybody.
Love you all.